I'm going to use this simple graph to explain why memorization with associations is superior to input for vocabulary acquisition, to learn new vocab, to learn new words. It's not superior for reviewing the vocab, maybe, but to learn new words, it definitely is because it's simple math, basically. If you memorize 100 words, and you can get pretty good at it and memorize 100 words pretty quickly, you added 100 words to your vocabulary. And if you use associations, they'll be part of your active vocabulary as well because associations tend to activate the vocab. But if you learn vocabulary only with input, you do well at first, but then you'll eventually run into trouble because if this is the whole language and you start doing input, you'll see these words, the most common 250 words, all the time. And you learn them very quickly with inputs. And the most common 500 words, you learn them relatively quickly as well. And with that, you'll understand half of the language already. These are very common. You'll see them in context over and over again. You'll learn them. The most common 1,250 words, much less common, still relatively common. If you read a lot and you listen a lot, you'll learn them eventually. Uh, it'll take much longer than this, but you'll learn them eventually. And with that, you'll understand 80% of the vocabulary of any text or, or video or audio. It will depend on the content, right? But the more complex content will be more difficult to understand because it will have more obscure vocab. But in general, this will allow you to knowing this amount of vocab, most common 1,000-ish words, will be enough to understand like three quarters of the vocabulary or 80% of the vocabulary in a text or in the content. The problem is everything else because everything else is much less frequent, which means it's still there. So it will be this. The rest of it will be this remaining 20% that you don't know, and it's always there, and it's there enough to make you not understand a lot of the text, a lot of the content, but it's also it's there enough to create problems, but it's not there frequently enough to for you to remember it because you need to see it in context 10 or 12 times to remember it, right? And this is where you should use associations. In fact, you should use associations for everything. Content is good, input is good with content, but why not start with associating the first 500 words, 1,000 words quickly, and then you can do a lot more inputs. You can do inputs more easily, faster, so you can do more of it. So the comprehensible input is actually comprehensible from the beginning if you associate these words first. But even later on, there will be a lot of words that you rarely encounter, so you keep forgetting them. Uh, that you should associate, so you remember them. So if you want to develop a rich vocab and you want to be able to understand basically everything, uh, you either read an obscene amount of books, and I'm talking about three-digit number of books in the language, or you associate vocab. A few hundred words a week should be enough to reach 10,000 or more in a year. You occasionally review the list and also do input. So you listen and you read and you see those words in context here and there, and you understand them when you read them or you hear them. This is why you should use associations to memorize vocab because otherwise, all this the less frequent vocabulary, which is most of the vocabulary in a language, you will not learn it unless you do insane amounts of input. Because yeah, the more vocab you learn with input, the more input you'll need to learn more the remaining vocab. Yeah, because the more further away you get from the center, the more amount of input you'll need to see these words again in context, because they're less and less frequent. But with associations, it's exactly the same. These words are exactly as easy to memorize with associations as these words. This is why memorizing is so important. If you learn to memorize 50 words a day, 100 words a day, and then do the input, enjoy the input, in a few months you'll have much more vocab than just doing the input. Yeah. So I guess this explain. I mean, people will be ranting against memorization anyway, but results. You can't argue with results, right? Anyway, thanks for watching. See you later.